Good afternoon to all of you who have tuned into WYYZ Radio. This is Scarlet Campbell with Let's Talk. I will let you know what we're going to talk about in a few moments, but first, I want to mention that last week I suggested an assignment for my listeners to take some time and listen to their inner feelings and inner voice. What was that little voice saying to you all week? And what feelings and emotions were expressed or felt? Our objective is to come to know ourselves and to learn to accept and love who we are. To do this, we have to become aware of what you are feeling and telling yourself, to listen from the inside out. But we are so conditioned to looking outside ourselves for answers, when everything we do, say, or think comes from the inside. You cannot know who you are by thinking as others think or doing what others are doing. You are different. You are unique. You are not like everyone else. So you have to start thinking for you. What are you like? What do you like about yourself and your life? How do you feel about yourself and your life? What are you thinking? What are you telling yourself? This is your life. Come to know who you are. Okay, let's talk. Today we're going to talk about grief. So many people don't understand what someone is going through who has lost a loved one or something very dear to them. So I hope to clarify some myths about grieving and hope others will get a better understanding and can be more empathetic toward those who are experiencing loss. We will give some suggestions on how to get through it and what other people should not say to someone who has just lost a loved one. Ava Rogers is here with me again. Ava lost her son and husband. So you will get first-hand knowledge of what one goes through when one loses a loved one. Grief is a natural response to loss. It's the emotional suffering you feel when something or someone you love is taken away. The more significant the loss, the more intense the grief will be. In other words, the stronger the relationship, the more intense will be the grief. There are many different losses that can cause grief. Some such losses could be the loss of a job, divorce, miscarriage, the death of a pet, selling your family home. I know of a woman who lost her home in a fire, which was full of antiques. She went through a long period of grieving because she spent her whole life fixing up her home and collecting antiques. Gone within minutes. Any loss can cause grieving. Losing someone or something you love or care deeply about is very painful. You may experience all kinds of difficult emotions, and it may feel like the pain and sadness you're experiencing will never let up. These are normal reactions to a significant loss. Everyone grieves differently. It is a personal and highly individual experience. How you grieve depends on many factors, such as your personality and coping skill or style, your life experience, your faith, and the nature of the loss. There is no normal timetable for grieving. It's usually a gradual process. Healing takes time. Some people start to feel better in weeks or months. For others, the grieving process is measured in years. I talked with a woman who lost her teenage daughter in an automobile accident. It had been about 4 years previously, and tears welled up in her eyes just talking about her daughter. She said that people keep telling her she must get over this. I told her to not listen to what others say, because there is no time limit in grieving. You'll get over it when you do. That brings me to what people should not say to someone who has lost a loved one. One cannot truly know what it is like to lose someone or something they loved unless they have gone through the experience. So sometimes people feel uncomfortable in these situations and really don't know what to say. Sometimes people just don't think of what they are saying or how it comes across. Here are a few things that people I know have said they wish people hadn't said to them. One man I know who lost his wife within a month of being diagnosed with cancer was asked, "Well, how come you didn't have this checked out before? And how come you didn't have her cremated?" First of all, it's no one's business what decision one makes for their loved one. And second, no one wants to answer such questions at a funeral or even shortly after. A woman I know lost her husband after a long period of illness. Someone asked her how she was doing and what she was going through. She explained how she has good days and bad days and expressed what she would do on her bad days. And the other woman said, "Well, that can't be much fun." The woman who lost her husband said, "I felt like the woman didn't really care, and I was sorry I expressed my feelings to her." Another thing she really didn't want to hear was when someone else said, "Maybe it's for the best." No, I loved my husband, and it wasn't for the best. Another woman, a friend of mine who lost her husband, told me that a person said to her after 4 months of his passing, "It's time to get over this and go on with your happy life." That is not something that you should say to someone who has lost a loved one. And something about that word, happy life, just didn't fit. Others go on with their lives, but it takes time and sometimes a lot of time for healing to take place. If you feel uncomfortable in situations like this, a simple "I'm sorry" or "I'm sorry and I don't know what to say" is all you have to say, and people will understand. When I was younger, I felt uncomfortable when someone was grieving and wouldn't say anything. Eventually, I learned that a grieving person really wants what a grieving person really wants to know or really needs is for someone to listen to what they are feeling or listen as they talk about the loved one they lost. Another comment that should not be said unless you absolutely mean it is, "Call if you need anything. I'll do anything for you." First of all, you should be the one to call and see if the person needs help. And don't say it if you don't mean it. One woman told me that a couple of friends said that to her, and when she called to ask for help, they gave some ridiculous excuse of why they couldn't help. I told her that she needed to get new friends. What's interesting about this is that one of her friends who refused to help is now dealing with a very sick loved one, and he called and apologized for not helping her when she asked, and for not being a true friend. Let's talk about some of the myths and facts about grief. Myth 1, the pain will go away faster if you ignore it. The fact is, trying to ignore your pain or keep it from surfacing will only make it worse in the long run. For real healing, it is necessary to face your grief and actively deal with it. Myth 2. We're not talking about drugs. We're talking about a myth. It's important to be strong in the face of loss. The fact is, feeling sad, frightened, or lonely is a normal reaction to loss. Crying doesn't mean you are weak. You don't need to put on a brave front. Showing your true feelings helps with the healing process. Number 3, if you don't cry, it means you aren't sorry about the loss. Well, the fact is, crying is a normal response to sadness, but it's not the only one. Those who don't cry may feel the pain just as deeply as others. They may simply have other ways of showing it. I remember when my mother passed away. I felt nothing. I felt no sadness until about a month later. I was sitting at home alone and I started thinking about my mother, and I started crying. I cried for a straight hour, and it was exhausting. After that, I was fine. I know a man who had a hard cry for about 5 minutes at his mother's funeral and was just fine after that. We are all different. Brief myth 5. Grief should last about a year. The fact is, there is no right or wrong. No right or wrong time frame for grieving. How long it takes can differ from person to person. And here are a couple of tips for coping with grief. And this comes from an article from helpguide.org. Number 1, find support after a loss. Now is the time to lean on the people who care about you. Turn to your friends or family. Oftentimes people want to help, but they don't know how. So tell them what you need, whether it's a shoulder to cry on, or help with funeral arrangements, or just to listen. Draw comfort from your faith. Praying, meditating, or going to the church can offer solace. If you're questioning your faith, talk to a clergy member or others in your religious community. Join a support group. Grief can feel very, very lonely, even when you have loved ones around. Sharing your sorrow with others who have experienced similar losses can help. Talk to a therapist or grief counselor. If your grief feels like too much to bear, call a mental health professional with experience in grief counseling. And number 5, take care of yourself. Now, this is a hard one because one is in great pain. It's very hard to want to take care of yourself, but it's suggested that you face your feelings. Suppressed or unresolved grief can lead to complications such as depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and health problems. I worked with a lady who, as soon as her husband died, she moved out of her house and moved into a condo that they owned, and also remarried within a few months from then. 2 years later, after her first husband died, she said to me, "I don't know what's the matter with me. I love my present husband, but I keep going back to my old house, and I'm feeling very sad." When she told me what she did, I said, "Margaret, it sounds to me that you ignored the pain that comes with losing a loved one. You simply suppressed it and got busy with moving and remarrying. You never took the time to grieve. You have to grieve." After pondering over that, she said, "I guess you're right, and now is the time." As was mentioned earlier, if one does not go through the grieving period, it can cause depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and many health problems. As I mentioned at the beginning, that Ava Rogers is here again with me. Ava, thanks for being here with me on Let's Talk. So, let's talk about you and how you got through the passing of your son and your husband. It's got to be absolutely horrible to lose a child and then to lose your husband, whom you loved very much. How did you ever survive?
It hasn't, certainly hasn't been easy. And you've hit on a few things uh, that I certainly want to address because it can be so hard of a time for somebody, and you can really just lose yourself. And in my case, I almost just let the grief have me after my husband. Now, when we lost our son in '04, I had my husband for support
Mm-hmm.
because we were extremely close, my husband and I, and he was my support system and all I required at that time. When I lost him, that support system that got me through losing the child was gone. Um, and I had no one. And you know, you mentioned saying the wrong thing. That's something I really want to address because that has happened in spades. People say that, you know, I know we're human, we don't know what to say.
Uh-huh.
But I agree with you when you said stick with, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. Stick with those simple phrases because trying to go further can turn into something bad as people get uncomfortable talking about your loved one dying.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had someone I considered to be a very close friend um, tell me how lucky I was that it was that instead of a divorce.
Oh,
That was devastating and has permanently affected the friendship.
yes, I'm sure.
Um, yeah, tell me how great it was I wasn't going through what she was going through, that mine just died. Which honestly made me question her love for her husband
Uh-huh.
because is that true love if you're saying I would rather him have died than divorced me?
Uh-huh.
So I don't necessarily think that was all that good of a love in the first place, and mine was. Mine was the real deal. But people can just say horrible things upon the death of my son. I walked into the grocery store. I believe it was the first time I had ventured out since we lost him, and was approached by a very rude lady that I've known most of my life, who came running almost in excitement to ask me, was it his fault? I heard it was his fault
Oh, wow.
because it was a car accident. And let
Yeah.
me answer that right now. Yes. Yes, it was his fault. He was
Mm.
driving too fast.
Mm-hmm.
That does not change anything
Exactly.
for the parents that are grieving. And honestly, I almost hit her.
Oh,
She never knew it, but I had to I gripped the buggy very tightly with my hands, and I looked at her and said, I'm just not even answering that. And I turned and walked away.
yes. People just don't think.
Um,
They don't think.
you know, how could I've never, that still just blows my mind that she approached in that manner,
Mm-hmm.
um, and said, was it his fault? I heard it was his fault.
Oh,
D-
that's what, oh my
That's what she
gosh.
said to me. Run up to about my child dying. That was her question? Not are you okay?
Yeah.
Not been praying for you guys. She wanted the gossip. She wanted to know
Uh,
if the accident was his fault. Well, yes, yes, it was.
yeah.
Not the time to ask me that for sure.
Well,
And I'm certainly not in any means a violent person. But as I said, I felt my arm drawing up to actually draw back and hit her,
yeah. Yeah.
but managed to maintain and walk away.
You should have. You should have hit her.
You know, that's actually a couple times I have wondered if that would have been, you know,
Or slapped her in the
excused.
face.
Yeah, I think I probably would have been excused for that one. But honestly, if you're uncomfortable and you don't know what to say, don't say anything. Give the
Exactly.
person a hug, say, I'm so sorry, and leave it at that. If
Yeah.
you're uncomfortable, don't open your mouth, please, because
Yeah.
we're doing all we can do at that time to get through what we're going through.
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
negativity and the wrong comments just bring us further down.
What is the worst part? What is the worst part that you had to deal with?
The
Yeah,
worst
okay,
part.
you dealt with your son to a certain
Hmm.
point, and then you lost your husband.
There wasn't the loneliness with the son. There was certainly missing him.
Uh-huh.
There was missing his sense of humor and his laughter and all the wonderful things that made him who he was. Um, but there wasn't the loneliness because I still had three of my other three children were still at home. My
Mhm.
husband was still there with me. After my husband, I was alone. Kids had grown, gone on their way. I was falling apart and I had nobody there. because unfortunately, people do get so uncomfortable with that situation. And we ran a successful construction company. We had many, many people that were in our lives on a daily basis. I want to say 80+% of those people just disappeared.
Really?
Never called, never checked, never came around to see about me. And these were people that were in our life on a daily basis. A lot of them, some of his best friends, I still have not gotten a single phone call from since it happened. You know, they showed at the service or whatever, and then they were just gone. Don't do that to
Yeah.
people because, like I said, I almost just let the grief have me.
Yeah.
And had I had more people around, I don't know if it would have made a difference or not. Certainly not blaming them because I know people get uncomfortable and don't know how to deal with it. And my husband was such a remarkable man and so loved by so many. I know it was hard on them too. We all suffered a phenomenal loss because he was an amazing man. But don't walk away, even if it's just a phone call to say how are you doing. Don't ever ask, "Are you okay?" Because no, they're not okay. How are you doing? Is also kind of a silly question but it is an appropriate question, more appropriate than some.
Yes,
But
and it,
mostly just calling to check on you, just letting you know I'm thinking about you. That's the best you can do for people going through this. But the loneliness, I have to say, with my husband was the worst part because that other half of me, literally, the other half of me just was not there anymore.
exactly. Well, like was mentioned, if you know, the stronger the relationship, the harder the more painful it is
Mm-hmm.
to lose someone. So you more or less answered my other question of, did you want the support from others or to be left alone? I know. I mean, people don't answer. I know a neighbor who lost her husband, and I called several times, but she never answered the phone. And then I met her uh, in person, ran into her, and she more or less apologized for not answering the phone. I said, "Oh no, I certainly understand."
But did she also tell you how much it meant to her that you did call?
Well, she
That
did.
she saw
Yeah.
that you did call. Now, yeah, no, we're not in our right minds at that time. We might not return calls. We are getting that message. We are seeing that number come up on our caller ID, and we know that you are trying. Now, whether we're doing the right thing and calling back or not,
Well,
that's a toss up.
I didn't expect her to call back, um, but after calling several times
Mm-hmm.
and then her never answering the phone, and I knew that she was home, you start to
You
wonder,
get concerned. Mm-hmm.
does she need more help or what? You just don't know. But it's a uncomfortable situation for not just the griever, but those that don't know what to say.
Right.
You know.
And sometimes, like I said, just nothing is the best thing to say. Just to show up.
Yeah.
Just to be there, just to make that call and say, "Hey, just checking on you. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you." That's really the best you can do. But that opens it up for that grieving person to know who they can call on if they do really need something,
Right.
because you are that one still checking, still caring. Like I said, most people I just didn't hear from again.
What was interesting with this one woman I talked to was that she got support from people that she had no idea would ever come to her aid. I mean, this was the one whose friends, who she thought were friends, gave these ridiculous reasons why they couldn't come today, but they could come in 2 days to do what she wanted, or uh, one was going to come when she when he was on vacation, and and then it turned out that I just can't do that because it would just upset me too much. It would just be too sad. Well, he's the one that is. suffering with a loved one
Wow.
being very ill now.
Like you said a little while ago as well, don't say it unless you mean it. Do not say, call me if you need anything, unless you mean it. Unless you are willing to possibly drop everything you're doing for that phone call that says, I need you. Unless you are actually willing to go that far,
Exactly.
don't even say it.
And then the griever should not be the one to be calling unless, uh, I mean, if you're a friend, you will call periodically and say, is there anything I can do?
I get that a lot too. Why haven't you called us?
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And a couple of them that were closer people in my life, I have actually said, well, I didn't know I was the one supposed to be doing the calling.
Yeah.
Um, but rude or not, that's I've learned how to speak my mind a little more through it for sure.
Yeah.
Because I had an incident here a while back. There was a young lady that was in our life all the time. We had helped her with her children. We had helped her out financially from time to time. She was a single mother. Um, After he passed, I think it was about 4.5 years later, I get a call one morning, and it's her frantically on the other end, and her first words to me at 7 a.m. were, I've got a problem and you've got to help me.
Oh.
I had not heard from her since he passed.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And she got a no.
Yeah.
I did not help her with her problem. Wished her well, but said, I just can't do anything for you.
Yeah.
So don't do people like that either.
Right.
And
Exactly.
say, you have to help me? No, I don't. And that may be a bad attitude in some circumstances. But when you walk away from a person in so much pain, you're setting yourself up to get that no answer from them later on. I mean, you just really are,
Exactly.
because we remember it.
There's consequences of how you treat other people. It'll always come back to you in one way or another.
It's all that we had assisted her.
Mm-hmm.
And to not even get a phone call. She didn't even come to the funeral home, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then wait that long to say, you have to help me. No, I don't.
No, not this time.
No.
Another thing that this one woman said is, like, during the holidays, people insist that you come and spend the holidays with them. And I know their heart is in the right
They
place.
mean well, yes.
But if you don't want to go, then don't insist that somebody should come to your house, because they just want to be alone. They want to spend that time.
And yes, it does mean something that you put the invite out there, and that
Exactly.
you're willing to put up with a person that's probably going to be sad at your family event or your holiday dinner. That is appreciated, that you're willing to do that.
Yes.
But for the first, I guess honestly, last Christmas was the first time I've really just gotten into Christmas
Really?
since my husband passed, because that was his favorite time of the year.
Yeah.
And he just loved to make sure everybody, got what they wanted, and that was just, he was a very giving, wonderful soul, and Christmas was his favorite time.
Yeah.
And only this last year, but I had gotten custody of my 2 little grandchildren in July of last year.
Uh-huh.
So it turned out celebrating Christmas was not optional for me this last year, because
Right.
I had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old that were counting on it. But that turned out to be a very good, that I was almost forced
Yes.
to celebrate it and go all out again like I had done in years past before the loss.
And he would like that too.
He's, I've thought several times he's probably been disappointed with me on occasion that I haven't been stronger.
But it's okay.
But it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
He also knows how much I love him.
That's right. Even to this day.
Always.
Yeah. Well, Ava, I thank you so much for being here and sharing your inner feelings. I mean, I know there are other people that feel the same way and probably don't have someone to express that with. And it's wonderful that you can be so open like that.
Well, that's one of the subjects is very near and dear to me
Yeah.
because I did go through it almost alone.
Yes.
I mean, I had my
Yes.
children,
Yes.
my mom and dad, great support system, but and a few, a few good friends. Um, but the majority of the few good friends weren't the ones that were in my life before.
Uh huh.
They're ones that have come along since and have that never even knew the man, but they think they do. They think they did because
Uh
they've
huh.
listened to me enough. And but you know what? A couple of those people are right here, right now. So
And you know what is interesting is that my husband and I used to go into the restaurant, Christopher's restaurant, and that's when your daughter was working there,
uh-huh.
and you would come in, and your husband would come in. I don't know if you were working there.
I did some. I helped them out when they
Yeah,
needed it. Yeah.
and I had mentioned to my husband, said, that is a happy family because you could just, there was just so much love, not physical love, hugging and kissing or anything like that. It was, you could just sense it.
Uh-huh.
You could just sense it, and it was nice to see. It really was nice to see.
He was, as I said, a wonderful man, and we did have a very, very good relationship. We were absolutely lifers, no doubt. Um, just one, and he was just such a gift to me
Yes.
because my first marriage was horrible. Um, so Daryl was just, he was just always such a gift to me, and I just appreciated him so much for the man he was, and the fact that I didn't have to worry about abuse or being left or being cheated on. It just wasn't a concern.
Yeah.
He was such an honest individual that if he said he would never do it, then he would just never do it.
Yeah. Y-
Um, Remarkable man, and
You
we had
were
a wonderful marriage. I was very fortunate.
you were highly blessed, and so was he.
Absolutely, I was anyway.
He was too.
But it's and it gives me some peace knowing that I had that because a lot of people never get that.
Exactly. That is how true that is. Yeah. Well, our time is running short, and I just want to thank you again.
Oh wow, we have just blazed right through, haven't we, Miss Scarlet?
What do we have?
Well, just go ahead. We'll be all right for a
Okay.
couple more minutes. I'm not going to
Well,
cut you off.
I hope this has given you, the listeners, a better understanding of what one goes through when someone has lost a loved one or something dear to them. You don't need to understand everything. Just know that someone is hurting and you can help. It's time to say goodbye until next week. I leave you with this thought. We never know what life has in store for us from moment to moment. One moment, someone is with us, and the next moment, they're gone. And tomorrow is not promised to any of us. So enjoy your moments, enjoy your life, cherish it, and use it wisely. This is Scarlett Campbell, and thank you for listening.